Welcome to Gavels Down, Voices Up with me, Rachel King. This is where we leave convention at the courtroom door and dive into your real stories, bold and unpopular opinions, and change-making ideas that really shake the legal world up and change where change is desperately needed. I'm here to shake it up, talk about unfiltered insights, and amplify voices that need to be heard. So are you ready? Let's get it. Put the gavels down and the voices up. Today on Gavels Down, Voices Up, we are going to talk about inheritance wars, defending your rights, navigating contests, and some things that can be done to hopefully prevent inheritance wars. Inheritance can really tear families apart. I have spoken to my own family members that have said that they really are looking forward to an inheritance that they are going to receive. I've known people that have planned their entire retirement over an anticipated inheritance. I've had my own children come to me and say, when you die, Mom, I want your rings or I want your elephant collection. And you know what? In my own family, there have been many people who have wanted the exact same item. The problem is it's not your stuff to decide whether you get it or who it's going to go to. It is the person who owns it. It's my stuff. I get to say where it goes. And maybe I don't want it to go to you. Right? Now we can get into all sorts of estate planning on how you can make sure that your assets go and are inherited by the people that you want. But still, even doing an estate plan or taking preventative measures doesn't stop inheritance wars. And that's why this is a truly important topic. I am a California board certified specialist in probate, so I do inheritance all the time. In fact, now that I'm a litigator and I litigate this, most of what I litigate is people arguing over what they should or should not have gotten, right? Or whether the person in charge is doing what they're supposed to be doing. Inheritance themed in lawsuits are really common and they can devastate and destroy families. Siblings that maybe did get along, maybe didn't get along, shattered without any hope of coming back together. Nieces, nephews, grandchildren, all of it can be completely torn apart simply over inheritance. If you are somebody who's going to inherit, you have a right to inherit. At the same time, if you are the person that's put in charge to make sure that little Sally gets her inheritance, you also have a legal obligation to make sure. That's where inheritance wars often start. The person that wants to inherit is pissed off because they don't think they're getting what they are entitled to. The person that's doing the management, the distributions, the handling of the estate is over here like, hey, I'm just following the rules. Or they're all doing the wrong thing. The person that's supposed to inherit is stealing. The person that's in charge is misappropriating. So there are so many different scenarios that inheritance wars come into play. And the solution is honestly to make sure that everybody's complying with the law, that the right people are inheriting, that the person in charge, the administrator, is following the rules and is doing what they're supposed to. So what does that look like? Well, how an estate is managed, how my property is going to be handled after I die really depends a lot on what I do to pre-plan. Have I done an estate plan? Have I done a will? Have I done a trust? What have I done to say what's going to happen? If I don't, then my estate will be managed completely under the California Probate Code that says who's going to inherit and who's going to be in charge. And then it's just a matter of pushing it through the court. That inheritance war looks like two sisters that are both wanting to be in charge that can't stand each other, fighting over who's going to be in charge. Recently, I was in court on a case like this, and the judge said, I do not want either one of you to be in charge. My goodness, this is going to be a nightmare. I'm going to put an independent professional in place. And the court did. And guess what? Now the independent professional administrator is administering the case, and the sisters have sort of realigned and are just pissy with the professional. Didn't stop the inheritance war, but it brought it down and took it from an atomic nuclear war to just a little bit of griping. If you have a will, then inheritance wars often occur where one person is saying that the will was invalidly created. Maybe there was a will that was done in 2002 and amended in 2018, and the 2018 change says that the caregiver is going to inherit and all of the children have been disinherited. Well, that's a problem. The inheritance war is between the children and the caregiver saying, whoa, that will isn't valid. Maybe there was some undue influence. We should inherit. The caregivers over here like, what are you talking about? That's totally fine. You guys have had no relationship. We're fighting over who's going to inherit. That's a very common inheritance conflict, and it comes in the way of a trust contest. So you're going to go in and you're going to object to the probate, and then you're going to say, hey, this will, it's not valid. And then there's the good old trustee or administrator, also called the executor sometimes, that just decides, you know what, it's a lot of work. I think I should get some money. And they start using the estate money or the trust money to take them to Hawaii or to buy them first class airfare or to get a new house or a new car, maybe because they have to drive around to do the estate. So they think a new car is justified. That happens also. And that is another kind of inheritance war where we as the beneficiaries are coming in and being like, hey, dude, you're stealing from the estate. You're not allowed to. And so we're taking issue with what that person is doing. We're fighting them and saying, the person's saying, what are you talking about? I was appointed as the trustee. This person really likes me. I'm doing everything that I'm allowed to. And we go at it and we try and prove, depending on what side you're on, who is doing the wrong thing. You know what's unique about inheritance wars? It is a whole bunch of people fighting over money that is not theirs. That makes it sometimes a little bit easier because it's like, oh gosh, stand down. But also it is around a grief situation, and people grieve in really different ways. So how their grief manifests can really affect how they handle their inheritance, potential inheritance, or whether they turn it into an all-out war.
And now for a quick break. This episode of Gavels Down, Voices Up is proudly brought to you by King Law Firm Attorneys at Law Incorporated. We're not just about winning cases, we're about making a difference. Whether it's family law, probate litigation, or standing up against elder abuse, we bring experience, empathy, and excellence to the courtroom. At King Law Firm, we're more than lawyers. We're your team, in your corner, advocating for your rights and making your voice heard. Visit us at thelawyerking.com and on the socials at The Lawyer King to see how we fight with you and for you. King Law Firm Attorneys at Law Incorporated, where your fight becomes our fight. Now, let's get back to today's episode.
One of the biggest nightmares, I think, for everybody to anticipate or to think about as they're going into this is, yes, I think it goes without saying that if you go into court or you sue a family member, probably you're not going to have a good relationship. But that aside, the biggest nightmare is where your inheritance conflict ends up eating all of the money in the estate. Who gets paid? This girl. I do. I'm the attorney. I still get paid. But you know who might not get anything at the end of it? You, because you got yourself involved in an inheritance war. Maybe you had no choice and it was the only thing you could do, or maybe there was emotions flying. But in so many cases, the amount of the estate is completely evaporates with all of the legal fees that are going on. I once had a case where the estate was estimated to be $100 million. Yeah, I know. Like, I can't even fathom that. So of course you're going to fight over $100 million to get your share. That's a lot of money, and blowing $200,000 or $300,000 on an attorney, assuming you have it, not such a big deal if you're talking about, a $10 million share or something like that, right? It might be financially worthwhile. This case went on for so long and had so much money involved that people had 3 and 4 attorneys each. That's a lot of attorneys. That's a huge hourly rate. And the asset, the main asset, was one that fluctuated with the economy and the market. So you know what happened? When the judge finally made the decision, the asset had gone from $100 million to $10 million. Now we're thinking about how we're going to divide this $10 million asset. Divide that by 5, you're at $2 million. Still not a bad day, right? Except that all of the attorneys get paid. The court and the administrator are entitled to their costs and their fees. And when we walk away, we're talking $100,000 each. Maybe get into what the other people got. I don't know. I didn't see their attorney's bills. So $100,000, not a bad day either. But when we're talking about the years and years of stress, the unknown, and that it went from a couple $100,000 or came from the estimated $10 million share down to $100,000, that is crazy. So one of the things that I tell my clients is let's look at the big picture and see what our goals are. What is the law in this area? What does it say? Was the will validly created? Did you have a relationship with your parent, or were you really estranged for 20 years where it's not totally odd that they wrote you out? Let's look at the facts, because remember, it is presumed that the person, me, gets to give away my stuff however I want and to whomever I want, and that I did it the right way. So if you're going to take issue with it, really, really look at all of the law, all of the facts, and be honest with your attorney so that your attorney can work with you and say, here is what is going to happen. And maybe settle. Of all of the areas that I've practiced, I think settling in an inheritance war is probably the most time well spent. Why? Because you're fighting over money that's not yours. So every dollar that you pay out and time that you waste on an attorney or a court case is money that you are not getting for yourself. Take what you can, see if you can reach an agreement, get any money that you can out of it, and then move on and enjoy your life. I know I'm talking myself out of business because I do inheritance wars, but I'm thinking for real. Think through it. In no other area of law is having an attorney and understanding what is going to happen more cost effective, if you will, than in inheritance wars. Because ultimately, if you can reach an agreement as to what should happen, you're going to be increasing this financial gift that you are receiving. Inheritance wars tear families apart. They make families, they break families. See if you can figure out a way to come together. Do the estate planning in advance if you can. Talk to really reputable, specialized attorneys that handle this, that can go over what you can do to limit potential inheritance wars down the road. Maybe you have a no contest clause, but you give a little something to make them pause at that. Maybe you have a certificate of independent review or a panel of doctors that say, yes, this person really can make these decisions. Look at your rights. Make sure that your estate plan is done in a way that's going to have your assets going and being handled the way you want to. If you're the receiving party, you're the beneficiary, talk to an attorney. Make sure that you are getting what you're entitled to, but make sure that you're not taking on a huge fight for something that you aren't going to get. My name's Rachel King. I'm interested about your horror inheritance wars because they happen all the time. Some amazingly high percentage of people die every single day. I think at one point my kid came up to me and said it was like 1 every couple of seconds is how often people die in this world. That's horrible. But we all know we're going to die. So how can you protect your rights, whether you're alive or you're dead, whether you're the beneficiary or you're the person giving things away? How can you protect your rights to make sure that the money's not all going to the attorneys? Let's hear about your inheritance wars. Thanks for tuning in to Gavels Down, Voices Up. Like what you heard? Then don't just sit there. Subscribe, share, and tell me your thoughts. I'm Rachel King, bringing not just my opinions to the mic, but about the courtroom too. Your part, keep listening, keep engaging, and until next time, let's keep those gavels down and our voices up. Unmistakably up.